Okay, the next topic's on direct and inverse proportion. Direct proportions where two quantities are related and one increases or decreases in the same proportion as the other. So in the case of direct proportion, it'll produce a straight line graph that passes through 0, 0, indicating that it's a line that passes through the origin. And we need to consider that as one value doubles, another doubles. If it halves, it halves. If it triples, it triples, so on and so forth. So we could use a simple example here of revenue for a lemonade stand. I've misspelled proportion. So revenue is equal to $2 times by the quantity. That's in this form here. In this case, K is 2, X is Q, Y is R. R and Q are in direct proportion. If I sell twice as much, the revenue will increase by twice as much. So let's try that. Let's pretend that I sell 2. It's equal to $2 times 2, which is equal to $4. The quantity doubled, the revenue doubled. They're in direct proportion. Some interesting things to note, that if we didn't start at 0, if there was a fixed cost involved, these wouldn't be in direct proportion anymore. So it must pass through the origin. For inverse proportion, this is a little bit different. Clean that up. In this case, as one increases, the other decreases. So let's set up a little formula for that. Y equals 2 on X. So if we set up a little table of values, we can observe what happens. When X is 0, it'll be 2 on 0, which is undefined. When X is 1, Y will be 2. When X is 2, Y will be 1. We can see that as X is increasing, Y is decreasing. When X is 3, Y is 2/3. So on and so forth. What we can see is that as X gets larger, Y gets smaller. And in this case, it's approaching 0. So we can see from the graph, the red lines, that there are two asymptotes, one at 0, we have one at X equals 0, which is this one, and one at Y equals 0, which is this one. And it has this peculiar shape, which is a reciprocal function, or reciprocal graph. It's a hyperbola, a specific hyperbola, a right hyperbola. And we can see that as one doubles, the other halves. If one halves, the other doubles, so on and so forth. It's going the opposite way. And there's a quick review of direct and inverse proportion. Well, I suppose one thing to note before we finish is that with direct proportion, it doesn't have negative values for X, whereas for inverse proportion it can. So if I've drawn this graph correctly, I can't remove it. This part of the line shouldn't have been. This part of the line shouldn't have been there. And that's it. Thanks, everyone. Right eventually.